Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. In today's breakout video, we are going to focus on antigens and antibodies. Specifically, I will be focusing on what are antigens, what are antibodies, how do antigens and antibodies interact, and what is the purpose for their interaction. These concepts of antigens and antibodies come about when talking about immunology in the body's ability to build a defense system. I will focus more in depth on immunity in later videos. So first, let's talk about an antigen. What is an antigen? An antigen is a substance or a molecule that the body recognizes as foreign. What exactly does that mean? That means that the body does not recognize this substance or molecule as something that is its own and can then elicit an immune response against it. Basically, an antigen can stimulate the immune system to produce antibodies. Examples of antigens would be things like viruses or bacteria. So to sum this up, antigens are foreign substances that the body recognizes should not be there, and because of that, the body can then be stimulated to produce antibodies against these specific antigens. Before we talk about antibodies and how they react with these antigens, let's talk more specifically about what an antibody is. An antibody is actually a protein, and it is a specialized protein that can help immune cells destroy antigen. Antibodies are also known as immunoglobulins. They are composed of both heavy and light chains. There are two heavy chains. The heavy chains are longer, and there are two light chains. The light chains are smaller. They are also composed of a constant region and a variable region. The constant region of the antibody makes up the majority of the antibody, and as its name implies, it is constant, meaning it is the same in all antibodies. This would be the region that would be inserted into a cell. The other region is the variable region, and that's the region on the top part of the antibody. And like its name implies, it is variable. So that means that this region will vary in what this region looks like. And that's really important because this variable region is also the antigen binding area. So this is where antigen will bind to. So it's very important that this variable region is variable so that different kinds of antigens can bind to this area, and that will allow antibodies to recognize different antigen. This idea is very complex, and I will focus more in depth on this as we get into different videos. So how do antigens and antibodies interact? One of the things you'll notice is I just wrote antibody down at the bottom with the AB next to it, the capitalized A, the lowercase b. That's how we refer to antibodies shorthand. It's much easier to write it like that. So how do the antibodies and the antigens interact? We have to go back to what I just said and look at this variable region. So that those top portions I just mentioned at the top of the antibody are the variable regions, and those are the areas that the antigens can bind. Okay, so the antibody can bind the antigens in that area. And so it's really important that they're variable. So therefore, there's a lot of different antibodies that are capable of recognizing a whole slew of antigens. In later videos, I will talk more in depth about how those come about and how we can have so many antibodies that recognize different things. But for this video, I just want to touch on antibodies and antigens, what they are and how they interact. So the antibody will actually bind the antigen at that point. So if they come into contact with one another, okay, you'll have your antibody, and then the antigen will actually bind here. So let's pretend this is an antigen right here, and it will actually bind. The important thing is that the antigen on its surface has specific recognition portions that the antibody itself will recognize, and so it will bind that antigen. And that's a very important concept in immunology, because once it binds to that antigen is stuck, and that antigen can't go on and do anything else that it was supposed to do. So let's just say, for example, right now, that antigen is a virus. That antibody recognizes that virus, it binds to it. Well, now that virus can't go and infect cells and make more of its own kind. So that's just one example of how this antigen antibody reaction is so important, okay? And I'm going to write here antigen with its abbreviation so that when you're taking notes, you can do that shorthand, okay? So this video is just a quick look into antigens and antibodies, what they are, how they interact. In later videos, I'm going to go into more in-depth explanation as to how these antibodies come about and more aspects on what the antibodies actually do, their properties, etc. Thank you all for watching my video. Please make sure that you like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you never miss one of my new videos. Please continue to share my channel so that I can continue making videos for you. And if you have any questions, please make sure to leave a comment. Thank you.